There is a lie sold to men in loud voices, a lie that insists power must announce itself, that dominance must be proven, that confidence is measured by how much noise you make in a room, by how quickly you speak, how forcefully you interrupt, and how aggressively you occupy space. But real power never raises its voice. Look closely at a man's face when he says nothing. The face is not decoration. It is a canvas of the soul. Every line is a decision made under pressure. Every still muscle is a boundary that has been tested and held. Every calm breath is a refusal to be dragged into chaos. The most dangerous men are not the ones who posture, perform, or flex for attention. They are the ones who observe. They sit still while others rush to explain themselves. They remain composed while the room burns with insecurity and nervous energy. They do not chase validation because they have already conquered the one place most men never visit, their own inner world. True power is silent because it does not need permission, applause, or approval to exist. You've felt it before, even if you couldn't name it. That presence that enters a room without announcing itself. No bravado, no performance, just a quiet aura that shifts the temperature of the space. Conversations slow down. People become more careful with their words, not out of fear, but out of instinct. Men like this move like a ghost, noticed but never fully understood, respected but never fully decoded. They don't demand attention. Attention finds them. This is not about intimidation. It's not about manipulation. It's not about being feared. It's about mastery. Mastery of emotion when provoked. Mastery of perception when others are reactive. Mastery of self when temptation invites shortcuts. And this is why ordinary men cannot copy these habits, because they require discipline, where most people seek theatrics, patience, where most seek immediate results, and silence, where most seek validation. There is a fundamental misunderstanding of influence. Most men believe influence is something you do. The elite understand influence is something you become. You do not perform calmly. You cultivate it in moments no one sees. You do not imitate composure. You earn it through pressure, restraint, and self-command. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet his private writings were not about conquering others, but about mastering his impulses, fears, and reactions. He did not need spectacle to be powerful. He relied on restraint. And restraint is the first habit ordinary men cannot copy, because restraint is invisible work, and invisible work is where real power is forged. The first habit is the foundation upon which all others stand, because without emotional sovereignty, every other discipline collapses under pressure. Emotional sovereignty means a man no longer delegates control of his inner world to external events, opinions, or disruptions. He does not wake up reactive, scanning the day for something to fight or flee. He does not allow inconvenience to dictate his mood, nor does he let disrespect hijack his nervous system and pull him into unconscious behavior. This is not emotional coldness or suppression. It is emotional literacy. Modern psychology labels it emotional regulation. But long before neuroscience gave it terminology, Stoicism practiced it with precision. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself not to be disturbed by the behavior of others, because disturbance itself is a form of surrender. The elite man understands this at a cellular level. When stress enters the room, he does not mirror it. When tension rises, he slows down. His breath deepens instead of tightening. His posture remains neutral instead of defensive. His voice stays measured instead of sharp. This alone shifts power dynamics. Humans subconsciously look for emotional anchors in moments of uncertainty, and the man who remains steady becomes that anchor without effort or performance. Ordinary men confuse emotional expression with authenticity and believe that reacting proves honesty. The refined man understands that not every emotion deserves an audience or immediate release. Emotions are information, not instructions. Anger signals boundaries, fear signals preparation, sadness signals reflection. But none of them are permitted to take the steering wheel. He observes them, interprets them, and then decides consciously how to act. This habit is not built overnight. It is forged through repeated exposure to discomfort, without escape. Sitting with irritation without acting on it. Letting silence exist without rushing to fill it. Remaining composed when the ego wants to defend, explain, or dominate. Over time, the nervous system recalibrates. Calm becomes the default state, rather than something he has to force. This is when presence gains weight. This is when a man's shadow becomes noticeable, not dark, not aggressive, not performative, but substantial. People feel safer around him, yet more alert. They speak more carefully. They listen more closely. Respect forms quietly, without demands or declarations, because emotional sovereignty broadcasts a signal that this man cannot be moved unless he chooses to be. The second habit is the discipline of watching without reacting, and it is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Ordinary men speak quickly because silence exposes their inner noise. They fill gaps with words, explanations, jokes, and defenses because not being immediately understood feels like a threat to their identity. Elite men move differently. They are comfortable letting moments hang. They are not in a hurry to clarify who they are. They understand that clarity earned over time is stronger than clarity demanded instantly. So they listen longer than they speak. They watch posture before words. They hear tone before content. They notice pacing, breathing, micro-pauses, and emotional leakage that most people overlook. They see who rushes to justify themselves, who over-explains, who seeks approval through verbosity, and who can remain still without discomfort. In psychological terms, this is high perceptual acuity, the ability to absorb more information than you project. In real life, it simply looks like patience. In cinema, characters like Thomas Shelby are often misread as intimidating because of their presence, their suits, and their authority. But their true power lies not in what they do, but in what they refuse to do. They do not rush responses. They do not interrupt to dominate. They do not reveal emotional stakes prematurely. Their eye contact is steady, not piercing, not aggressive, present without hunger, still but not vacant. This restraint creates an informational advantage, not through manipulation, but through self-control. When people are not challenged, corrected, or rushed, they reveal themselves naturally. Silence becomes a mirror. People project into it. They talk more. They disclose motives, insecurities, intentions, and emotional positioning without realizing it. The elite man understands that the one who speaks the least often learns the most. This habit transforms conversations at a fundamental level. Others feel genuinely heard, yet subtly exposed, not judged, not cornered, simply seen, and being seen is both comforting and disarming. Over time, this builds influence without effort. Trust forms because the man does not compete for attention. Respect follows because his attention feels intentional, measured, rare. And rarity in any domain, whether objects, time, or presence, creates value. The third habit is the art of delay, not procrastination, not avoidance, but intentional pause. A disciplined stillness that exists between what happens to you and what you choose to do about it. This space is invisible to most men, yet it is where self-mastery quietly lives. The average man reacts on impulse. He replies instantly, defends instantly, and decides instantly, driven by emotion, pressure, or the need to be seen. The elite man does the opposite. He waits. He allows the moment to breathe. He understands that urgency is often a trap and that power rarely announces itself in a hurry. Neuroscience confirms this truth. Impulse control is deeply connected to long-term success, emotional regulation, and cognitive clarity. But beyond science, delay speaks a language others can feel. A man who does not rush communicates abundance. He signals that he is not desperate for validation, not threatened by silence, and not controlled by the tempo of others. When provoked, he pauses, not because he is weak, but because he refuses to be pulled into chaos. When praised, he receives it without inflation, without letting ego swell and distort judgment. When criticized, he considers the words without collapsing, extracting truth without absorbing poison. This pause changes the entire dynamic of a situation. It disarms aggression, it cools tension, it introduces clarity into rooms filled with noise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that other people's behavior is beyond control, but one's response never is. The elite man lives by this principle. He does not reward chaos with attention. He does not confuse urgency with importance. He understands that not every message deserves an answer, not every challenge deserves engagement, and not every emotion deserves expression. Over time, this habit rewires identity. Life becomes less reactive and more deliberate. Decisions slow down, but they land with precision. Words carry weight. Actions feel intentional. Nothing is rushed and nothing is sloppy. This is how authority is built quietly. This is how composure becomes presence. This is how a life turns into a masterpiece, not thrown together in panic, but crafted with patience, restraint, and absolute control. The fourth habit is the one that quietly separates men for life, because it draws a line most never even realize exists. Ordinary men obsess over how they appear, how they are perceived, how they are judged, and how they can manage impressions in every room they enter. Elite men move in the opposite direction. They focus relentlessly on who they are when no one is watching, because they understand a truth most people miss. Image is fragile, but identity is resilient. An image must be maintained, defended, updated, and constantly adjusted. Identity once built carries itself. When a man commits to identity, clear values, non-negotiable standards, and internal agreements he refuses to violate, his behavior stabilizes. He stops shape-shifting for approval. He no longer needs to reinvent himself depending on the audience. His actions become predictable in the most powerful way, aligned. He doesn't perform confidence, he embodies alignment. Psychology refers to this state as internal coherence, the condition where beliefs, values, and behavior move in the same direction. When coherence is present, mental friction disappears, stress drops, presence deepens, the nervous system calms because there is no inner contradiction to manage. People sense this immediately. They may not have the language for it, but they feel it. Coherence reads as groundedness. It reads as certainty. This is why men who speak less but live consistently exert disproportionate influence. Their silence carries weight because their behavior has already spoken. Their words land heavier not because they are eloquent, but because they are backed by pattern rather than promises. The elite man understands that reputation is not built through broadcasting intentions or announcing goals. It is built through repetition. The same choices are made when it's inconvenient. The same standards hold when no one is enforcing them. Over time, image follows identity naturally, like a shadow follows a body. And because it is not manufactured, it does not crack under pressure. It endures. The fifth habit is physical, but its roots are psychological, and it reveals itself long before a man ever speaks. Watch how disciplined men move, not in moments of performance, but in ordinary transitions, how they stand from a chair, how they adjust their jacket, and how they walk through a doorway. Their gestures are economical, never excessive, never rushed. Their steps are unhurried, grounded, and deliberate. Their posture is relaxed yet aligned, not slouched in defeat and not rigid in compensation. This is not about dominance, intimidation, or theatrical confidence. It is about nervous system regulation. A rushed body reveals an overloaded mind. Quick, erratic movements signal internal pressure, subconscious fear, or the need to keep up. Calm movement signals control. When the nervous system is regulated, the body no longer leaks urgency. Leadership psychology has shown repeatedly that observers perceive slow, deliberate movers as more competent under stress, more trustworthy in crisis, and more capable of decision-making under uncertainty. The elite man understands this intuitively. He is never in a hurry to prove himself because he does not experience time as an enemy. He arrives on time, never early out of anxiety, never late out of indifference. Even his waiting is calm. When he enters a room, he does not scan for approval. His eyes adjust slowly. His breathing remains steady. When he sits, he settles fully, not perched at the edge, not collapsing into space. When he exits a conversation, he does not rush to escape or linger to be liked. He leaves cleanly, decisively, without emotional residue. Over time, this habit trains the body to treat calm as the default state rather than the reward after chaos. The shoulders drop, the jaw softens, the breath deepens, presence thickens. Others feel it before they can explain it. Conversations slow around him. Reactions soften. Tension dissolves in his proximity, not because he demands it, but because his nervous system sets the tempo. This is how physical discipline becomes psychological authority. Not through force, but through coherence. Not through speed, but through stillness in motion. Eventually, the body becomes an instrument of certainty. The mind follows. The aura becomes unmistakable. The final habit is privacy, not secrecy, but discernment. This distinction matters. Secrecy is rooted in fear, in the belief that exposure will weaken you. Discernment is rooted in strength. It is the calm decision to protect what is still forming. Ordinary men overshare in search of validation. They narrate their struggles, broadcast their plans, and externalize their inner world, hoping for reassurance. Elite men move differently. They understand that the inner world is a workshop, not a stage. What is constantly exposed cannot mature. What is constantly explained loses its power. Privacy is not withdrawal, it is containment. It is the discipline of knowing that not every thought deserves an audience. Not every plan requires applause, and not every emotion needs to be processed out loud. Marcus Aurelius wrote privately because he understood that too many voices dilute self-command. His meditations was never meant for the crowd. They were exercises in self-governance, a space where clarity could exist without distortion. The disciplined man follows the same principle. He chooses carefully who has access to his thoughts, his intentions, and his emotional processes. Not because he is hiding, but because he is building. This habit preserves focus, it reduces external interference, it protects momentum. When fewer people are inside your head, your decisions sharpen. When fewer opinions surround your path, your stride steadies. Depth forms in silence. Stability forms in restraint. Privacy creates mystery, yes, but more importantly, it creates internal order. When a man is not constantly explaining himself, defending himself, or justifying his pace, he remains centered. His nervous system settles. His presence becomes grounded rather than fragmented. People feel this before they understand it. There's a weight to him, a coherence. Over time, this habit compounds. While others burn energy reacting, correcting, and clarifying, he accumulates force quietly. His influence grows without announcement. His shadow stretches long, not ominous, not performative, but substantial. It is the shadow of someone who stands firmly in his own frame. He becomes known not for what he says, not for what he posts, not for what he promises, but for how he shows up, consistent, composed, and unmistakably self-contained. In the end, these habits are not techniques to be borrowed or tricks to be mimicked. They are disciplines forged in silence and tested over time. Ordinary men cannot copy them because they demand patience when impatience feels easier, restraint when reaction feels justified, and inner work when distraction offers comfort. There is no shortcut to calm, no hack for presence, and no performance that can replace self-mastery earned in solitude. The elite man does not chase power or announce intention. He cultivates gravity within until it bends the room without effort. He studies himself more than others, governs emotion before circumstance, and chooses depth over display. He moves like a ghost, not absent but untouchable, seen without being seized, felt without being framed. His life becomes a masterpiece, not loud, not rushed, but enduring through consistency and restraint. And his aura speaks long before he ever does, because it is built, not broadcast.